And I suppose in love.
Whatever in love means.
Is there any possibility of any announcement of your marriage in the near future? Can you tell me? Can you tell me if there's any possibility?
I'm not going to say anything, please.
Right, but Prince Charles did give us a hint himself. He said we wouldn't have to wait too long.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the really interesting challenge, I believe, lies in whether we can apply the timeless lessons of the past.
I believe that kingship is a healing force in this sick world of ours. On one condition: the sons or the grandsons of kings are freed from an enervating atmosphere of privilege and have an opportunity to discover, to test, and to develop those hereditary virtues which gave their ancestors the position of great importance.
Yesterday you were a nanny looking after children. Now you're about to marry the Prince of Wales, and one day you would, in all likelihood, be Queen. It's a tremendous change for someone, I may say, of 19 to make all of a sudden, the transition.
It is, but I've had a small run out to it all in the last 6 months. And next to Prince Charles and I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
The months between the engagement and the wedding were hectic, often exhilarating, sometimes trying.
Oh, Cameron!
She had to learn the restrictions of royal life. Never again would she be able to walk quietly down to the shops. Prince Charles had to keep the engagements he'd accepted before the announcement of the engagement, and this meant some separation. Diana had to accept this and do her best to hide her feelings.
Now, if you watch that piece of footage when Prince Charles is asked, "Are you in love, sir?" Princess Diana is beaming, and she's giggling, saying, "Yes, yes, yes." And he says, "Whatever love is." And she looks at him as if to say, "What are you talking about? Don't you know what love is?" That was the problem from the beginning. Charles didn't really know what love was.
And here I am, showing just how adaptable the sports commentator can be. All alone on the deep sea fishing boat with just my rod and line, the great unknown, a few helicopters and Aztec, but yes, I do believe I got a bite. I have a bite. I'm letting out a little slack now. Yes, taking up the strain. This is most exciting, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen anything quite like it before. I think I got quite a large one here. It's very, very large indeed.
Whatever love is. Those rather telling words were spoken by the king-in-waiting as he revealed his bride-to-be to the world's media. But little did he know, those words would come back to haunt him, and would unknowingly be the harbinger of the sad end to their marriage. A castle, a carriage, and a crown. Charles, the Prince of Wales, is destined to one day be king, heir to the throne and a member of the royal family, the firstborn son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
Her Royal Highness is the proud and happy mother of a prince. The salute is fired, and in the monarch's home lies the infant boy who will one day be king. All day on Sunday, people waited outside the palace, including phlegmatic pressmen with whom it is a point of honor to show no excitement. And all day there was no announcement. It was after 10 at night that those who waited, and they were very many, heard the tremendous news, a royal baby and a boy.
Patriarchs adored him and stood by him with the knowledge he would one day inherit the throne. Prince Charles, the most eligible bachelor in the world, determined to marry by the age of 30 and to continue the noble and ancient lineage through his own heirs. Millions await the marriage of the decade. However, a man with his status and lineage, doused in the limelight, attracts the attention of whomever he wants. With pressure from all sides, Charles was forced into a mission to find a suitable wife.
Yes. Now the outlook for something or other. Yes. By morning, promiscuity will be widespread, and this will lift by degrees and may form patches of hill snog. Now, the outlook for Fun Day and Booze Day. The weather will continue for the next few days, and the weather for the Naval Review at Portsmouth will be warm and sunny, so no cold navals. And as William of Orange once said, here come pips.
Conforming to the strict rules of the royal family, Charles's choice of women was limited. To the outside world, he had it all. Despite being a sensitive young man who had never really found his place in the tribe, he felt neglected and lonely, and the women he involved himself with were quickly rejected by his family. As Charles got older, the pressure increased. In the grey days of the 1960s, the moral landscape was somewhat different, and for a future king to marry anyone who was the least bit experienced with men was just not acceptable. The king-in-waiting was determined to fulfill his duty and find an appropriate bride, a bride accepted not only by his family and their traditions, but one accepted by the people of Britain. But the journey to find a suitor took longer than one might think for the most eligible bachelor in the world. He would eventually reintroduce himself as a married prince after marrying the much-adored Lady Diana Spencer. However, the lead-up to his final decision to marry her would be a journey many are not familiar with. As a key member of the royal family and the future King of England, it was his duty to marry and continue the lineage of his family.
Hello, good morning. Well, the big day has arrived. In 4 hours' time, Charles Philip Arthur George Mountbatten Windsor marries Diana Frances Spencer, and Britain and the world will celebrate the wedding of the Prince and Princess of Wales. In this program, we're going to capture every moment of the preparation, the procession, the service, and the celebrations. The celebrations began last night when 750,000 people jammed into Hyde Park for a spectacular firework display.
Prince Charles was well aware of his own destiny from an early age. Growing up, he spent much of his time learning about his lineage, shadowing his parents during royal affairs, and familiarizing himself with royal public etiquette. The lives of his mother and father changed radically upon the death of King George VI. Princess Elizabeth ascended to the throne and became Queen Elizabeth II. Prince Charles was the only one of their children to attend the coronation, as Princess Anne was considered too young at the time.
Her 6 ladies-in-waiting in attendance, and the sword of state borne before her, the Queen walked to the altar to receive the Holy Bible, a symbol of more than earthly authority and power, a guide and rule for the whole life of Christian princes, the great book which is, in the words of the service, the most valuable thing that this world affords. The Queen kissed the Bible and then signed the oath. The moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, having received the Bible from the Dean of Westminster, presented it to Her Majesty.
Here is wisdom, this is the royal law, these are the lively oracles of God.
Prince Charles was now in the Abbey to witness the anointing. 4 Knights of the Garter bore the pall of silk or cloth of gold, held over the Queen during this most solemn rite.
Many people have fond memories of Charles sitting between the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret as he took on the role of heir apparent. His childhood is said to have been a solitary and lonely one. His mother and father busy with their duties, an endless round of royal engagements, official visits, and tours across the globe. His relationship with the Queen, his mother, was said to be detached, and with his father, Prince Philip, it was particularly difficult.
The royal couple proceeded up Broadway, the Canyon of Heroes, bombarded by tons of ticker tape, millions of cheers, and what was the most enthusiastic reception anywhere in Elizabeth's 10-day North American tour.
It is said that the young Charles often felt he disappointed his father, not quite living up to his father's strong personality. Prince Philip did, however, take a particular interest in teaching Charles the outdoor life, getting him to fish and hunt. A running theme throughout their relationship was the aim to get Charles to become more of a man, perhaps more of a leader. A possible attempt to pass on characteristics of Prince Philip to his own son. Knowing the nation's future expectations for the monarch in waiting, it was believed to be important that Charles has the qualities of a leader instilled in him. Even in his education, Prince Philip was more determined than ever to toughen up young Charles, and he forced the Queen's hand, deciding to send Prince Charles to Gordonston, a tough and competitive school. A school once attended by Prince Philip. However, the school was supposedly also extremely caring in Philip's day, and he believed strongly that it made him into the man he was, the man who had married the future Queen of England. So he believed it must make Charles a man who could be king, and perhaps a man who could attract a future queen. Charles was a sensitive child growing up, kind-hearted and had an affinity for academia. He was fascinated with learning new things, more so than honing his competitive edge. This may have hindered his relationship with his father from developing a stronger bond early on. However, Charles was his own person, with his own personality, not swayed by that of his parents or his lineage. Prince Charles did have a close relationship with the Queen's mother, however, and she encouraged his gentle nature and kind ways, offering the affection that some say may have been slightly lacking in his relationship with his parents, a trait he would look for in his future bride. A running theme in his chase for affirmation.
The great court of Trinity College, Cambridge, and the royal procession arrive. The minis serve to underline Prince Charles' hope that his time at Cambridge will be uncluttered by deference to his royal status. Lord Butler, the master of Trinity, set a precedent by meeting him, but otherwise the college, founded by Henry VIII, welcomed him with the informality he obviously hoped for. The prince, who'll be 19 next month, will be reading archaeology and anthropology. The first Prince of Wales to attend the university for 100 years, he'll be living in a room in New Court, and it was here he met a friend of his, third-year student Robert Woods, son of the Dean of Windsor. A stroll to the backs for a look at the gently flowing Cam. In the Elizabethan dining hall, lunch 3 bob. There he saw windows dedicated to his great-great-grandfather and his grandfather, who were both up at Trinity.
Charles spent much of his academic years surrounded by other boys of a similar age. A highly competitive environment with a strict regime. The first time Charles would set his sights on a woman would be during his time at university.
During the 9 weeks, the Prince's home has been room number 95 in Pantycelyn Hall of Residence. In an identical room next door is third-year student Geraint Evans, who was given the job of looking after Prince Charles.
As to what sort of student he is, he's a very hard-working student, which perhaps is unusual in this place. He's also a very natural student. You know, this might sound strange, you wouldn't describe students as natural, but you would have to describe him as being natural. He's made a very hard effort to get on with people, and it's been very easy for all concerned, I think, this term.
Has it been possible for you to make a friend of him?
As far as it was ever possible, I think it there's been certain friendship between us. Perhaps it'd be fair to call him an acquaintance. The only occasion where perhaps it could go further than this, he did about 4 weeks ago come home to tea with me, and you know, he's very natural and very easygoing then.
Mr. Evans, you're a committed nationalist and one of those who would not support the investiture, but has your opinion of Prince Charles been changed, been modified during his 9 weeks here?
To the ceremony, no, but to the person, yes. I certainly have considerable respect and considerable sympathy with him in this ceremony, but the rest of the paraphernalia, my attitude hasn't changed.
Charles broke a royal tradition, and instead of going straight into the armed forces after finishing school, he decided to pursue higher education straight away and accepted a place at Cambridge University. He quickly found his feet and particularly enjoyed performing on stage, a useful skill for a future king.
I'm letting out a little slack now. Yes, taking up the strain. This is most exciting, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen anything quite like it before. I think I've got quite a large one here. It's very, very large indeed.
Charles would perform on stage with an audience to watch. He was able to relax and fulfill a role of a character far from his public image. He gained popularity and confidence. The confidence he would later use to attract women. During his second year, Charles was sent to the University College of Wales, Aberystwyth, where he studied the Welsh language and history, ready to win the hearts and minds of Welsh nationalists at his official investiture as Prince of Wales. He had been conferred the title by letter patent in July 1958, but the official investiture was not held until July 1969. And after careful studying of the language, Charles gave his address in Welsh, much to the delight of all concerned.
Army bomb disposal experts are on the alert. To prepare for the ceremony, 5 years local work has been crammed into 12 months. £5,000 worth of paint has been given away free, and all the shops in the town centre have been given a facelift. New paving stones have been laid, streets resurfaced, and new street lighting installed. Barriers are being placed along the route of the royal procession. Along the side streets, which the Queen and Prince will never see, the bunting is out. Every shop window proclaims the investiture, and every shopkeeper has been doing good business. Although there are 160 officially approved souvenirs, shoppers can choose among hundreds of other investiture trinkets. Carnarvon expects 250,000 people by Tuesday.
It was a time when he would grow in confidence and become a very hard-working and determined young man.
Carnarvon waits like a bride for her wedding, gaily dressed for the big moment, but anxious too that something could go wrong, though every precaution has been taken to make sure that it doesn't. As traffic jams block the town, army bomb disposal experts are on the alert. To prepare for the ceremony, 5 years local work has been crammed into 12 months. £5,000 worth of paint has been given away free, and all the shops in the town centre have been given a facelift. New paving stones have been laid, streets resurfaced, and new street lighting installed. Barriers are being placed along the route of the royal procession. Every shop window proclaims the investiture, and every shopkeeper has been doing good business. Although there are 160 officially approved souvenirs, shoppers can choose among hundreds of other investiture trinkets. Carnarvon expects 250,000 people by Tuesday.
It was during his time studying at Cambridge University when Charles, Prince of Wales, was introduced to Lucia Santa Cruz, daughter of the Chilean ambassador. Lucia would become Charles's first love. She was employed as a research assistant by the Master of Trinity College, and they met at a dinner party organised by Lord Butler. There was an instant attraction between the two of them. This was Charles's first real experience with a woman. But there was never a chance of Lucia becoming Charles's bride. At that time, as the future head of the Church of England, the prince would have been forbidden to marry a Catholic. Lucia was also 5 years older than Charles and considered too experienced in the ways of the world. Once it was decided this relationship did not have a future, the matchmaking Lucia told Charles she had just the girl for him. And so it was that she went on to introduce him to Camilla Shand, later Camilla Parker Bowles, and now the Duchess of Cornwall, the great love of his life. The formidable Lord Louis Mountbatten, his great-uncle, more often seen as his honorary grandfather, advised Charles to sow his wild oats as a bachelor. However, he was also keen not to see history repeat itself after the last Prince of Wales, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne to marry Wallis Simpson.
His was the first voluntary abdication in 1,000 years of British history, an abdication he explained to his far-flung empire in the most dramatic and heart-rending farewell ever broadcast.
But you believe me when I tell you
that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility without the help and support of the woman I love.
So Mountbatten advised Charles on specific characteristics and features which would make a good bride. In a case like yours, the man should sow his wild oats and have as many affairs as he can before settling down. But for a wife, he should choose a suitable, attractive, and sweet-charactered girl before she has met anyone else she might fall for. It is disturbing for women to have experiences if they have to remain on a pedestal after marriage. There has always been speculation as to the first exchange between Prince Charles and Camilla, but some suggest she introduced herself by saying, "My great-grandmother was the mistress of your great-grandfather, so how about it?" She was referring to her great-grandmother, Alice Keppel, who was the long-term mistress of Charles's great-great-grandfather, King Edward VII. They were said to have met at a polo match. During his formative years growing up, Charles did not have an imposing physical presence, nor did he have the hand-eye coordination to be proficient in traditional male sports. He was never picked for the traditional public school sports of rugby, cricket, and football. However, as he grew up, he discovered the world of polo and grew to realize he had a gift for the sport. Like much of his family, he had an affinity for horses and played very well, avoiding any ridicule from the press. No doubt Camilla would have been impressed with the handsome young prince, and there was an instant connection. With Camilla's on and off boyfriend, Andrew Parker Bowles, away for a while, they soon grew close and began to fall deeply for each other, although Camilla still longed for Parker Bowles. The powers that be decided that Camilla wasn't suitable as a potential wife, as she wasn't an aristocrat, nor a virgin. It was decided to send Prince Charles on his first posting overseas as a newly qualified naval officer.
If later on I'm to be associated with all three services, it'd be a very good idea to do an attachment with each one. I think it gives one a very useful experience of responsibility and discipline. I think responsibility is the most important thing. Is the actual trust that's put in you to deal with other people, and the feeling that they can perhaps put their trust in you as well.
And whilst away in the service of his country, the news reached him that Camilla had become engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Andrew Parker Bowles. Charles was in the sights of many possible suitors. However, finding the right one proved to be a time-sensitive problem for the young bachelor. At the time, it had been rumoured Charles's sister, Princess Anne, began a short-lived romance with Andrew Parker Bowles, a relationship both knew never had long-term prospects. Charles and Anne were born only 2 years apart, so as young children, they relied on each other for company whilst their parents were away, fulfilling their demanding royal schedules, and became very close, always mutually supportive through the trials and tribulations of their lives. They began their journey into fulfilling their own royal duties together and became known as two of the most hard-working royals.
We've been looking forward to it enormously because America, to me and to my sister, has always been a very fascinating and intriguing country, and we've always longed to come. And we're particularly grateful to you to let us stay in the White House. And little did we expect that the first and the only house we would stay in on our first visit would be the White House.
With so much in common and so many shared experiences, no doubt they would have confided in each other in their romantic endeavours. After all, they were in all the same social circles. Charles was well aware of the need to find a suitable bride, and in an interview at that time, he declared he was determined to find someone suitable who would one day make a good queen. He gave himself a deadline, promising he would find his bride-to-be by his 30th birthday, a task that proved somewhat challenging.
When I joined Buckingham Palace way back in 1976, it was already rumoured that Prince of Wales would be marrying somebody like Princess Mary Astrid, or Amanda Knatchbull. There were rumours that he would be marrying somebody else. There were always suitors around Prince Charles. He was the most eligible bachelor in the world at that time, heir to the throne of England. So he was never short of female companions. I saw him occasionally with the Queen. He'd stay at Buckingham Palace. His suite of rooms were at the palace. He had his own valet. He had his own household. And he was very independent. And really, he was searching for someone who could provide him with an heir and a spare. That was his main priority. He was getting old. And the Queen had said to him, "Isn't it about time you settled down, Charles? Isn't it about time you made us grandparents?"
You coming for lunch now then?
No, I'm not.
We'll buy your meal somewhere.
No, I'm buying my own lunch.
Are you?
Of course, his self-imposed deadline was also reinforced by the demands of his parents. Following his return from active service in the Royal Navy, Prince Charles met someone who appeared to be a very suitable aristocratic candidate, Lady Jane Wellesley, daughter of the 8th Duke of Wellington. They enjoyed a short-lived courtship, facing intense media scrutiny. However, when asked whether there may be an engagement announcement, Lady Jane replied, "Do you honestly believe I want to be Queen?" After his brief encounter and blunt rejection, Charles's eyes turned to Davina Sheffield, the beautiful granddaughter of industrialist Lord McGowan, who was, on paper, another good choice, as she moved in all the right social circles. At the time, however, she was in a relationship with powerboat racer James Beard. She is said to have turned down a dinner date with the prince due to her relationship with Beard, but the persistent prince would not give up so easily, and Davina finally gave in and left her boyfriend. When the tabloids began to smell a story of romance for the prince, and even rumours of a possible engagement, they began to target James Beard, trying to find the dirt on Davina. The press finally revealed that Davina and James had been living in sin together, so she was thus deemed an unsuitable bride for Charles, and their relationship quickly ended. For Charles, each time he became close to someone, the press would find problems in their relationship. Greatly reminiscent of his time at Gordonston when he was just a young boy. Gordonston is founded on the idea of character building through tough physical pursuits as well as an academic prowess. Each day started with an early morning run and cold showers, with open windows at night, even in the midst of winter. It was not the place for a sensitive young Charles, and he faced relentless bullying. But the isolated young prince found some solace by confiding in his bodyguard, Donald Green. After an incident in which the tabloid press caught Charles ordering a cherry brandy at the local pub, the unfortunate royal protection officer was fired, which was a great loss for Charles. Thankfully, he found solace in creative pursuits, enjoying the art room and developing his pottery skills. He also found great pleasure in classical music, choosing to engross himself in cello lessons. But it's understandable why the prince would look for approval in each relationship, both to satisfy the tradition and reputation of his family, and to satisfy the suspicions of the press, or he would face, once again, losing someone he began to care deeply about. In 1977, Prince Charles met Lady Sarah Spencer, sister of Lady Diana Spencer, at a Royal Ascot house party at Windsor. They dated for a while, but Sarah was too candid with the press, saying she wasn't interested in marrying the heir to the throne. "There is no chance of me marrying him. I'm not in love with him, and I wouldn't marry anyone I didn't love, whether he were the dustman or the King of England." Needless to say, this cut all chances of them marrying. Sabrina Guinness was Charles's next romantic interest. It was said Charles was absolutely besotted by her, even taking her to Balmoral to meet the family. Princess Margaret described the couple as serious, and it proved true as they went to polo and theatre together. She even took to fly fishing, which was one of Charles's favourite hobbies. She was the generation's it girl. But after 9 months together, Charles broke up with her after she was thought to have too much of a romantic past. She went on to date several A-listers, such as Mick Jagger and David Bowie, but felt the label of Charles's ex followed her for many years to come. Lord Louis Mountbatten knew the importance of finding Charles a good match, someone who would tick all the boxes for a future queen. His granddaughter, Lady Amanda Knatchbull, was the perfect fit. Even the Queen was pleased with the pairing. He introduced them, and they did find a particular fondness for each other. However, Lord Louis Mountbatten was then killed by the IRA. Amanda, already feeling a great loss, was faced with the reality of the press, and after Charles proposed to her in 1980, she turned him down. The royal spotlight was just too much for her. She is often thought of as the one that got away. For Charles, too, this was quite a loss. Lord Mountbatten had been a great guide and mentor to him through the years. Another proposal was around the corner. Charles was aware time was passing by. He had missed his deadline at the age of 30, and he had yet to find a suitable wife. The pressure from not only the media, but his family, would have been mounting on his shoulders, and for a prince determined to fulfill his duty, who was very sensitive to the expectations of those around him, it must have been a rather challenging time. He then started dating Anna Wallis, the daughter of a wealthy Scottish landowner, Hamish Wallis. She was known in their circles as Whiplash Wallis for her fiery personality. Charles reportedly proposed to Anna twice, but was turned down both times. She dumped him after Charles took her to 2 balls, and he then went on to dance with Camilla, leaving her all on her own. "No one treats me like that, not even you," she said to him, swiftly ending any kind of relationship. The prince and Camilla had remained very close over the years, and though there was much speculation as to whether they had continued to see each other romantically over these few years, it was something they always denied. Camilla was in love with her husband, Andrew, and enjoying married life, though not for much longer. The lifelong search for a suitable bride had just about come to an end when Charles met Lady Diana Spencer, the younger sister of Charles's own ex-girlfriend, Sarah Spencer. With all the criteria Charles was forced to follow, Lady Diana was a near-perfect match. Unfortunately for Charles, however, his lived experiences had hammered away all aspects of an organic relationship. At the time, Charles thought she was a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old. In 1980, a year after the death of Lord Mountbatten, they met again. Diana, now a couple of years older, was very sympathetic to Charles about his loss, which is said to have made him consider her a possible wife. Almost like clockwork, Charles began to consider his options. She seemed to have it all: the aristocratic background and no history with anyone else. Charles invited Diana to Balmoral, where the Queen, Prince Philip, and the Queen Mother all received Diana very well. Even Camilla gave Prince Charles the nod of approval. She thought Diana was an ideal candidate. Their courtship attracted a lot of attention from the press. The media chased Diana wherever she went. Prince Philip warned Charles that if he did not decide to marry Diana soon, then the press would somehow ruin her reputation, as had happened previously with women Charles had found himself involved with. Charles interpreted his father's suggestion as an ultimatum. The prince once spoke of marriage, saying it was the last decision on which I want my head to be ruled by my heart, and so he did what he believed was the right thing to do.
She now faced possibly the most daunting initiation test for would-be members of the royal family, ordeal by the media. Her flat came under siege. She was followed wherever she went. Even under this pressure, she stayed calm, and in doing so, she won respect.
How well are you coping with all the press attention?
Well, as you can see, you can tell.
Are you bearing up with it quite well, though? Because it must be quite a strain with all of us now.
Well, it is, naturally.
You're coping with it all right, though. You seem to be doing very well.
Well, I'm still around.
Is there any possibility of any announcement of your marriage in the near future? Can you tell me? Can you tell me if there's any possibility?
But I'm not going to say anything, please.
Right, but Prince Charles did give us a hint himself. He said we wouldn't have to wait too long.
In February 1981, the waiting was over. Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Charles and Lady Diana were engaged. The ring was a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. The couple looked happy and relaxed, delighted, like everyone else, that a wedding would take place. Earl Spencer and Lady Diana's stepmother celebrated among the crowds outside the palace gates. Inside, Lady Diana was facing up to a future she could hardly have dreamt of.
Yesterday you were a nanny looking after children. Now you're about to marry the Prince of Wales, and one day you would, in all likelihood, be Queen. It's a tremendous change for someone, if I may say, of 19 to make all of a sudden, the transition.
It is, but I've had a small run up to it all in the last 6 months. And next to Prince Charles and I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
The months between the engagement and the wedding were hectic, often exhilarating, sometimes trying.
Oh, Gavin!
She had to learn the restrictions of royal life. Never again would she be able to walk quietly down to the shops. Prince Charles had to keep the engagements he'd accepted before the announcement of the engagement, and this meant some separation. Diana had to accept this and do her best to hide her feelings.
Now, if you watch that piece of footage when Prince Charles is asked, "Are you in love, sir?" Princess Diana's beaming, and she's giggling, saying, "Yes, yes, yes." And he says, "Whatever love is." And she looks at him as if to say, "What are you talking about? Don't you know what love is?" That was the problem from the beginning. Charles didn't really know what love was.
Until this moment, Charles had lived his life true to himself. He had loved who he wanted, with no real consequences. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't just about having fun and new life experiences. He was on a time limit. In February 1981, Charles and Diana announced their engagement and appeared in an interview that would go down in history. When a reporter asked if the couple were in love, Diana replied, "Of course," Charles adding, "Whatever in love means." And there, he planted the seed of doubt.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Well, it
You can put your own interpretation.
Obviously means two very happy people.
Yes.
As you can see.
Well, from us, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very kind.
In July of that year, the prince gazed reflectively from his room, thinking about the long journey to this historic day. He had found the blushing bride and would soon enter a marriage that would have the whole world besotted. His journey as a bachelor prince would soon come to an end. From a young prince destined for greatness to the heir to the throne, Prince Charles's quest for marriage had finally concluded, and a new chapter with Lady Diana Spencer would soon begin, bringing with it a new wave of challenges and new lessons to be learned about love.
Look all along the route, see what it looks like as more and more people, as you've been telling us, are out and about. The best places are filling up, and everyone's making sure it's going to be a great day. Buckingham Palace, which has seen so many royal brides since the young Queen Victoria was its first, marrying Prince Albert 141 years ago. The royal carriages, the Queen's procession, and Prince Charles's little procession will drive down the leafy Mall to Admiralty Arch in the distance. And 5 minutes after the Prince of Wales has passed, Lady Diana and her father will come out from Clarence House in the glass coach, just with police outriders, for she's not royal yet, and will follow her husband-to-be to St. Paul's.
She was still Lady Di, but only just. She was about to become the first English girl in 500 years to marry a Prince of Wales. The eyes of the world were on her, and she knew it. She seemed remarkably free from nerves, at the age of 20, beginning a new and very different life. He said, "You look wonderful." She said, "Wonderful for you." The service was followed by the crowd outside in the sunshine.
I require and charge you both, as you will answer at the dreadful day of judgment when the secrets of all hearts shall be disclosed, that if either of you know any impediment why ye may not be lawfully joined together in matrimony, ye do now confess it.
It went without a hitch, almost.
I, Diana Francis,
I, Diana Francis,
take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George,
take thee, Philip Charles Arthur George,
to my wedded husband,
my wedded husband,
to have and to hold,
from
this day forward,
according to God's holy law,
and thereto I give thee my troth.
She was no longer a children's helper. She was the Princess of Wales, married to the heir to the throne. Another chapter in the 1,000-year history of the British royal family had been written.